Why do some men, when faced with certain women, become protective almost without realizing it, as if something invisible, ancient, and inescapable had been activated within them? And why, when faced with others, do they remain distant, indifferent, almost cold? Perhaps you think you understand how male instinct works, but what you're about to hear will dismantle everything that has been romanticized, taught, or accepted as truth. There's an invisible theater behind every protective gesture, and the main actors aren't love, logic, or desire. They're the secrets buried in the unconscious. What if I told you that you can learn to access these hidden layers? But that, to do so, you'll need to descend a level deeper. You've been taught to believe that you need to prove your worth, show strength, hide your vulnerabilities. But what if what truly moves a man toward protective impulses is precisely what you've tried to hide? The modern world has trained you to compete, resist, dominate, but the oldest codes of the male soul respond to another language. That of subtle presence, of unrevealed mystery, of the feminine that cannot be explained. Every woman carries within her the spark capable of awakening the dormant shadow within the masculine, but few know how to touch it without destroying the essence. And when they do, something ancient awakens. Something that even he doesn't understand. This isn't about manipulation, nor banal tricks. What you'll discover is a symbolic path, a psychological trail where each step must be taken consciously. Because there are risks, and there are revelations. We're dealing with archetypes, inner forces that have been denied for generations. And when you begin to activate them, nothing remains the same. The man changes. You change. The dance changes. But only those who courageously cross the threshold of the obvious are able to see what lies on the other side. The place where the masculine stops protecting itself and starts protecting. You're about to discover the 5 unconscious secrets that trigger the male protective instinct. But be careful. These secrets can't be heard with the usual ears. They require symbolic listening, emotional presence, and a momentary abandonment of the rational world. This isn't a series of tips. It's a journey. A crossing. And every second lost here could be the missing piece that will prevent him from ever seeing you the same way again. Don't skip ahead. Don't try to anticipate. Just allow each word to reveal what's always been inside you, but dormant. If what you seek isn't just attention, but impact, not just companionship, but real connection, then you need to subscribe to this channel now. Because here, we don't offer shortcuts, we offer mirrors. And no one emerges unscathed when they truly look at themselves. This is your chance to break the cycle of emotional devaluation, to reconnect with the woman the world has tried to silence, and to finally awaken in him, not fleeting curiosity, but the eternal drive to protect what can never be lost again. There is a strength that cannot be measured by shout or gesture. A strength that silences environments, that effortlessly attracts gazes, that doesn't demand, simply emanates. It is the feminine presence in its essence. Not the kind trained to fight for space, but the one that establishes itself as territory. When a woman anchors herself within herself without the need to prove, argue, or win, she activates an almost magnetic field around her. And the man feels it. Not with reason but with his body. Something in him moves, as if summoned by a forgotten language. Because it's not about behavior, but about energy. The energy that doesn't compete, attracts. The one that doesn't challenge, invites. The one that doesn't attack, awakens. Behind a rational armor, behind a shield of control that men erect to survive a world that demands constant strength, there is a delicate, frightened, and ancestral part that only the true feminine can touch. But this touch isn't physical. It's symbolic. It's silent. The woman who is at peace with what she feels, who doesn't compromise her intuition to fit in, who doesn't force smiles when her soul bleeds, becomes a disturbing mirror. Because she reveals to the man everything he wasn't allowed to be. And faced with this, he either pulls away, or bows down. Not out of submission, but out of protective impulse. Because there's something in her that the whole world seems to want to destroy, and he couldn't bear to see it happen. But the greatest sabotage a woman can commit against herself is to try to be heard using the weapons of emotional warfare. Comparison, demands, and a raised voice. All of this generates confrontation, not connection. The masculine responds with withdrawal when he feels threatened, but surrenders when he feels needed. And herein lies the hidden secret. A woman who knows her own strength doesn't need to fight, because she has already won. And therefore, she can choose not to fight. She can choose to simply be. And it is precisely in this effortlessness, in this presence without imposition, that the man feels he needs to protect. Not as a duty, but as a privilege. Because protecting what is rare, what is whole, what is true, gives meaning to one's very existence. What is most fierce in man is not born of control, but of mission. When he feels he stands before something sacred, something that cannot be corrupted without the world losing a part of itself, he transforms. The woman who awakens this doesn't need to ask. She simply is. And it is by being intense, sensitive, connected, that she shows the masculine that there is a place where he can be strength without rigidity, protection without domination, presence without invasion. In this space, he is no longer just a man. He is a guardian. But this transformation only happens when feminine energy ceases to be a threat and becomes a sanctuary. Perhaps you are feeling something right now that you can't name. A slight tightness in your chest, a memory that creeps in, a desire to understand why you so often kept quiet, adapted, hardened yourself so as not to appear weak. But what you may not have realized is that it was precisely there that you lost the gift of touching, of provoking in him what no other woman awakens. There is still time. The uncompetitive force still resides within you, hidden, forgotten, perhaps dormant, but alive. And by accessing it, you will not only be seen, you will be protected. Not because you need it, but because you deserve it. If this topic has touched you in any way, leave a comment. At what point did you begin to compete with that which, in truth, could liberate you? I'll read it. There is something between the lines of silence that says more than any statement. The feminine mystery is not the absence of words, but a presence that does not reveal itself immediately. When a woman does not compulsively give herself completely, when she does not emotionally undress in the first encounters, she creates a symbolic space where the man must move to understand, interpret, conquer. This space, however invisible it may seem, is an instinctive arena. He doesn't understand with logic, but he feels with his body. There's something there that needs to be unraveled, something that calls him to action. And in this unconscious movement, the ancient code of the hunter, the hero, the protector awakens. Because everything that isn't given, but demands presence, awakens the masculine to the subtle challenge of deserving. Mystery isn't a game. It's an ancient language. And when used authentically, not to manipulate, but to preserve inner depth, it becomes a mirror that challenges man to go beyond the superficial. There's a non-negotiable value in someone who doesn't reveal themselves immediately, who moves slowly, who allows themselves to be discovered little by little. This creates an atmosphere where man feels, paradoxically, called upon to offer security to continue accessing the invisible. The instinct to protect isn't born solely from danger. It's born from the perception that there's something rare, precious, subtle, that can escape. And faced with preciousness, man becomes a guardian. Not out of obligation but out of instinct. Because true mystery doesn't repel. It attracts viscerally. It is in this space where not everything is said, where there are pauses full of meaning and glances that tell stories without captions, that a man feels there is something more than appearance, more than momentary desire. He realizes there are layers that only reveal themselves to those who know how to remain, to those who know how to care, to those who know how to protect. And this silent awareness transforms into impulse. He doesn't just want to conquer. He wants to preserve, protect, remain. Mystery, in this context, is the thread that sews the connection with depth, and the woman who understands this doesn't need to explain herself. Because what she doesn't say, he feels. And what he feels transforms him. There is a silent strength that permeates a woman's gaze when she trusts. Not the theatrical, rehearsed trust, but the kind that springs from the depths of the soul and says, I see who you are, even when you don't yet see it. This trust needs no praise, nor promises. It settles in the subtle gesture, in complete listening, in the absence of judgment. When a man realizes he's seen through this gaze, a gaze that doesn't demand, doesn't humiliate, doesn't demand, something breaks within him. A layer of defense, often built over years, begins to crumble. And in place of rigidity, a silent responsibility is born, to protect what has seen him in his essence. What few understand is that men are deeply sensitive to how they are perceived. They carry wounds that they often never verbalize, insecurities they hide even from themselves. When they find a woman who looks at them without the lens of constant criticism, who offers presence instead of control, they feel something rare, the security of existing. This woman doesn't have to be perfect, nor always understanding. But her confidence is as firm as a root. And that's what transforms them. Not because she changes them by force, but because she plants in them the desire to be better, to be worthy of that inner space and she opened it without knowing. The protective instinct is born there, not as some random emotional response, but as a silent commitment to something greater. Needless to say, she trusts. The man notices. He notices it in the way she doesn't interrupt his pain, in the way she stays when everything is confusing, in the absence of unnecessary drama. He notices it when she doesn't try to guide him rigidly, but tenderly invites him to find his own way. In this silent invitation, the masculine recognizes the feminine as a haven, not a prison. And where there is a haven, there is protection. He doesn't protect her because she needs it. He protects her because she deserves it. Because she saw in him something that even he didn't believe he carried. And now, he has a mission. Not to let the world extinguish what she helped to ignite. There is a vast difference between needing someone and choosing to be with someone. And when this difference manifests itself in the presence of a woman, the effect is profound. The woman who doesn't cry out for help, who walks firmly on her own journey, yet still allows the man to approach, awakens something in him that goes beyond attraction. She could go it alone, and he knows it. But even so, she makes room. Not out of need but by choice. And this choice honors him. He doesn't feel used, pressured, or conditioned. He feels chosen. And when a man feels chosen by a free woman, the urge to protect her takes hold like a primal instinct. It's not helplessness that moves the masculine toward protection, but admiration. What truly moves him is the strength of the woman who doesn't need it, but allows it, who could handle everything on her own, but trusts him enough to let him act. This activates in his psyche not the desire to dominate, but to serve, to be present, to support without imprisoning. Because he knows that, at any moment, she could leave. She's not there out of dependence. She's there out of love, out of connection, out of conscious choice. And this makes his every gesture more attentive, more committed, more genuine. He doesn't want to protect because she begged. He wants to protect because she's worth protecting. When feminine freedom meets masculine presence, something rare is born, a bond without shackles. And in this space, the protective instinct naturally blossoms. He doesn't feel like he's losing his autonomy by caring for her. On the contrary, he feels like he's becoming more whole. Because protecting, in this case, isn't about taking control. It's about building a safe territory where she can further expand her freedom. And in this subtle cycle, both grow. The woman remains free. The man remains strong. But now, there's a silent dance between them. She allows. He protects. She soars. He sustains. And none of this needs to be said. Because what is true simply reveals itself. There's a part of the man that never grew up, that remains hidden behind his adult armor. A boy who was taught to be silent, to hide his tears, to show no fear. This boy still lives within him, camouflaged by discourses of strength and control, but hungry for something the world hasn't offered him. A space where he can simply exist, without being corrected or shamed. And when a woman connects with this boy without trying to educate him, without turning him into a project, but simply acknowledging his silent pain, she touches a chord no other has. It's not a gesture of motherhood, but of humanity. In that moment, the man feels he's found something sacred, and that he needs to protect what he truly saw. Most men will never verbalize this need. They won't say they want to be held, that they need someone who sees them beyond their social roles, beyond their masks. But they search. They search, often unknowingly, for a kind of feminine presence that doesn't accuse, that doesn't demand perfection, but that offers a kind of welcome that doesn't imprison. When the woman is able to be there, in that symbolic place, something changes in the dynamic between them. He doesn't close himself off. He opens up. Because for the first time, he feels he can be fragile and still be respected. And this invisible respect transforms, within him, into loyalty. A desire to protect. Not just the woman, but the safe space she represents. The woman who touches this boy without trying to dominate him, who acknowledges him without diminishing him, becomes part of something he's never encountered. And because of that, she becomes irreplaceable. Because more than attraction, she awakened in him a forgotten memory, that it's possible to love without hiding. And faced with this, the instinct to protect isn't a rational choice. It's a visceral reaction. He wants to protect her not because she needs it, but because she cared for the most defenseless part of him. And everything that touches the soul needs to be guarded with care. Because if it's lost, he knows he won't find it again. Man lives in an internal battlefield where, often, the simple act of feeling leaving is already interpreted as weakness. He grew up hearing that he needed to be strong, decisive, impenetrable. And so, he learned to bottle everything up. Frustration, pain, fear, doubts. You bottled up so much that, at some point, you forgot how to express yourself. But still, he observes. He closely observes how the people around him react to the small emotional openings he risks. And when he finds a woman who listens, not to respond, not to correct, but simply to sustain the silence between one sentence and the next, he disarms. Not because he trusts immediately, but because something in him recognizes there is space to exist. The woman who knows how to listen slowly, who doesn't turn every word into analysis, who allows emotional chaos to manifest without trying to fix everything, becomes a resting point. She doesn't treat it as a puzzle to be solved, but as a presence to be welcomed. And that changes everything. Because he begins to feel that, finally, he can take off his armor, if only for a moment. And in doing so, in finding himself vulnerable before someone who doesn't diminish him for it, an invisible pact is born within him. He feels the need to reciprocate that peace, that silent freedom of being. And he reciprocates as he knows how, by protecting, by caring, by being there more firmly than he ever has before. Few things awaken the protective instinct more than being effortlessly accepted. When he realizes he doesn't need to justify his pain, that he can simply exist without fear of rejection, the bond strengthens silently. He won't just protect the woman, he will protect the emotional space she represents. Because that which offers rest to the warrior becomes sacred. And everything sacred needs to be defended. Perhaps without words. Perhaps without obvious gestures. But with a presence that says, without saying, "Here I stay." And when a man decides to stay, there's no distraction that can pull him away. Because what he's found isn't just companionship, it's refuge. There's something deeply seductive about a woman who knows she can do anything, and yet chooses to allow it. Not out of submission, but out of wisdom. She doesn't need to be done for, saved, or completed. And perhaps that's precisely why she awakens a rare and visceral impulse in men, the desire to protect. Because her freedom doesn't threaten. She inspires. Her independence doesn't push away. She invites. The man doesn't feel he has to prove anything. He feels he can offer everything. And in this space, he's not pressured to act, but eager to participate. Because there's something about her that makes his every gesture meaningful. This woman isn't cold, nor distant. She is whole. And because she is whole, she doesn't impose her will, doesn't vie for authority, doesn't turn love into competition. When she allows a man to offer care, attention, or presence, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of choice. And therein lies the alchemy. He doesn't feel like he's being used. You feel invited, not to fill a void, but to share a space already full of life. She doesn't need it, but desires it. And this desire, free from neediness, awakens in him the will to deserve, to protect what is strong, precisely because it is sensitive enough to allow itself to be touched. The masculine, when touched by this experience, does not feel diminished, it feels elevated. Protection is, then, not an impulsive reaction to danger, but an offering, a gesture born of recognition. I am before something valuable. The woman who does not need to be protected, but who opens herself to protection by choice, completely transforms the dynamic. She is not reduced to the role of someone waiting. She silently leads a dance in which the man connects with his noblest self. And in this encounter, the outside world loses its meaning. What becomes important is no longer brute strength, but the delicacy in sustaining it. And he sustains it with pleasure, with honor, with a surrender that no imposition could provoke. Emotional clarity is a rare, and profoundly transformative, force. Contrary to what many imagine, it is not coldness or indifference. It is lucid presence. A woman who communicates truthfully, who expresses what she feels without getting carried away, who says what she needs to without attacking or manipulating, carries a kind of power that dismantles invisible defenses. Faced with this, a man doesn't feel cornered, he feels respected. He knows where he stands, understands what she wants, and this, instead of pushing him away, brings him closer. Because in a world where everything seems imprecise, where emotional play is constant, Finding someone who expresses what they feel without trying to control is like breathing in a place where before there was only fog. This woman doesn't demand. She reveals. She doesn't attack. She exposes. And in doing so, she awakens in the man a sense of responsibility that comes not from guilt, but from conscience. He feels the need to maintain that clarity, not because he was pressured to do so, but because she created, between them, a space without noise. A field wherein love can grow without needing to defend itself. Clarity doesn't hurt. It organizes. It shows where the other is and invites them to be there too. And it is in this silent invitation, in this firmness without harshness, that men find a new reference for relationships. One where protection arises not from fear of loss, but from the desire to preserve what is clear, whole, and real. The male is naturally reactive to chaos. He needs direction, emotional structure, even if he never admits it out loud. When he finds a woman who offers this direction subtly, without unnecessary confrontation, he relaxes. Not like someone who surrenders out of exhaustion, but like someone who finally finds solid ground. And in this silent rest, he feels he can be more than a warrior. He can be a partner, a shield, a home. Because protecting something clear is infinitely easier than chasing after what is hidden. And what is clear, true, and emotionally whole is worthy of being protected with everything he has. In the silence that descends after the final chord, something remains. An echo that never fades, a presence that never dissipates. You have been led down a path where feminine strength intertwines with masculine instinct, where mystery reveals itself without being completely unraveled, where protection is not possession but sacred surrender. Think of that space between what was said and what was left between the lines, because it is there, at that threshold, that true transformation is planted. What you have seen is not an end, but an invitation to recognize that each gesture, each silence, each gaze carries an entire universe, a universe that you can awaken within yourself and in others. The journey you have taken is not just about understanding the masculine or deciphering behaviors. It is a mirror for what dwells within you, where resides your strength that does not compete, your mystery that does not surrender completely, your clarity that does not impose. It is in this delicate balance between being and allowing that the invisible dance of protection and freedom is created. And perhaps now, as the video ends, you feel something ancient has been awakened, a spark that needs to be nurtured, a question that begs to be felt before being answered, a silent desire that won't be silenced. What will you do with this awakening? Imagine the woman who chooses her freedom without giving up connection, the man who protects not because he needs to control, but because he recognizes the sacredness in what he has chosen to care for. This image is not utopia. It is possible. It is within reach of those who dare to look within and accept that true strength lies not in rigidity, but in presence, in the gaze that says without words, "Here, you are seen. Here you are held." And when this happens, there is no loss, no fear. There is a silent expansion that reverberates in the depths of your being. The protection born from this encounter is the bridge between the world you know and the world you deserve to live in. If you felt something touched, that an invisible door opened, don't let this moment pass like any other. Like, share, and leave a comment about what this journey has awakened in you. Because here, we're not just talking about male protection, but about reconnecting with the woman you are and the man who can become your guardian. Subscribe to continue this profound journey, because what began here is much bigger than a video. It's an invitation to transform silence into presence, mystery into encounter, and instinct into true love. Be part of this change. Your story deserves to resonate.